Hey everybody, it is late at night and I am Norman. I actually like it when I get Google Memories showing up on my phone. It's always fun to go back over past events and just reminisce. And the other day, a memory came through on my phone from a night that was very interesting. And as I was looking through the photos, I noticed something and realized I need to do a video about this. I'm going to explain what that is, but first I have to tell you the story of that night. So let us begin. Alright, so a few years ago, a good friend of ours, who happens to also be our neighbor, had a birthday and she wanted to do something fun with all of us. All of us being my wife and I, and two other close friends of ours who also happen to be neighbors. So she rented a limo and we were going to go into my favorite city. We were going to have some drinks and then some dinner and come back and finish celebrating. So my wife and I put on some really nice clothes. She was actually wearing a dress, which is a rarity, and I was wearing a suit. Back then, I didn't really have any nice dress hats because, you know me, I always wear hats. So I dusted off one of my old pork pies and wore it fedora style. So it looked kind of funny with its small little brim, but whatever. We headed over there to wish her happy birthday and wait for the limousine. Our other friends came over and they showed up with a giant blinged out bottle of champagne. So we got out the flutes and began our celebration while we waited for the limo. It showed up and that limo driver is super cool. The nicest guy ever. We've actually used him a few times after that event. Once for another friend who is also a neighbor, who rented a limo and wanted to go again to my favorite city. So it was the usual suspects, people from this night going to a different restaurant there and celebrating her birthday. We also hired him in his SUV to take us to and from the airport. On the way back, I was in the front seat, and the whole way back he was telling me all kinds of inside information on running a limousine service and how cars are altered into limos, the pros and cons, the expenses, hunting for different vehicles. It was actually super interesting. But the limo arrived and we slid in. It had a long curving couch that ran from the front of the limousine all the way to the back. And it was such a fun ride there. We had our playlist going. At one point, a cork was shot all over the inside of the limousine, bouncing off stuff. I'm surprised we didn't get in trouble for that one. I mean, I had been excited for this night for quite a while leading up to it, because I'm a pretty tame person, so is my wife. And I know that at least in the past, our friends have absolutely partied like rock stars. So I knew that this was going to be a night to remember. And it definitely was. So that ride was like a scene out of a movie, just good times all the way into the city. We pulled up at the hotel, which is large and fancy. Our first stop was Daniel's Broiler, which is the best steakhouse I've ever eaten at. Their filet mignon is the texture of a burger through and through. It is just soft. There's no toughness anywhere. No overly fatty parts. Just, the best steak. And whatever they season it with is absolutely brilliant. So we showed up, no reservation, because we were just going to get some drinks. But when we walked in and smelled the food, we were like, why don't we just eat here? I mean, this place is amazing. It's like on the 17th floor overlooking the city. It's dim and proper like old school restaurants were, back when restaurants were dark inside. But there really wasn't a whole lot of room. In fact, it was looking doubtful that we would even be able to have cocktails there. However, they told us we could look through the bar side of the restaurant. So one side is for reservations and actual big booths where you would sit down and have dinner. The other side was mostly bar stools at tall tables, the bar itself. There were some tables in that area also, but it's considered the bar area. So we swung right, and my wife was leading the way. Everything was full. And like an absolute boss, she goes walking into this VIP room that was at the end of the bar, and straight ahead in the left corner was a huge round booth right there in the corner, ceiling to floor windows all behind us overlooking the city, and it was empty. Perfect. So we all slid into the booth. We ordered a whole bunch of appetizers, like big cubes of filet mignon. I think we did a filet mignon flight. And we had cocktails, and we had round after round of absolutely delicious food. And the party was just getting crazier there. After that, we went back downstairs. The limo was waiting for us. We headed back home, at which point things got really crazy. At one point, one neighbor put the other neighbor's pink sweater on, only he put his head through the sleeve. So that sleeve got stretched out pretty bad. By the way, that sweater is still around, and it is absolutely infamous in our little circle of friends. A hot tub was involved. I believe some wrestling was involved also. And the rest of the weekend was kind of a mystery, akin to the movie The Hangover, complete with an extra pair of dress slacks in the middle of the closet for no apparent reason, a computer keyboard that no longer worked because something got spilled on it, and a page from work in the middle of the night that had gone awry. But the reason I'm making this video is because as I was going through those photos, I realized I was wearing my original mechanical Dolce Vita. That watch is long gone now, but I have some wrist shots of that watch that we can compare to the one that I currently own. Because even at the time that I got that Dolce Vita, when I unboxed it, it was a lot larger than I thought it would be. It's kind of tough to gauge the size of tank-style watches if you've never really purchased any, and that was my first. So on paper it seemed like a perfectly reasonable size. I don't recall offhand what it was, so in this video I will just have to put the sizes on the screen as a comparison between my quartz Dolce Vita and this old mechanical one. But you can see in the pictures, it looks kind of big on my wrist. Yeah. I was expecting it to be more the size of the one that I currently own. You can also see that my old Dolce Vita had a date window at the 6 o'clock, and I'm really weird about date windows. That's partially why I was looking into their quartz ones, because they have a sub-seconds. But it's really cool to see these pictures, and I rarely wore that watch. I think the only reason I wore it that night was at that time it was the dressiest piece that I owned. I think it's been a while, but I think at that point in time I had the Christopher Ward Malvern. I probably had the Nomos and the Stova, and I think that was about it for dress watches, besides the Dolce Vita. So even though I never really wore it, that was the piece for the evening. But you can see in the side-by-side wrist shots why this one just seems like a better fit, at least to me. This feels like the perfect size for a tank-style dress watch. In my mind, they should be on the smaller side. They just should. But the cool thing is, as you can see in the old photos, with the Dolce Vita line, you have options. In fact, I'm going to be doing a future news video where I cover an even smaller Dolce Vita. They've put out a ladies mini size, so keep your eyes open for that video. It's a pretty great looking watch. But yeah, that was definitely a night to remember. And I'm so glad that I immortalized my old Dolce Vita without even thinking about it. At that point in time, I had no idea I was going to get rid of that watch. So, Yeah. Thank you, Google Memories. Thanks for watching.